Live on DAZN pay-per-view December 23rd. Day of reckoning. Witness the biggest names in boxing.
Here we go, our main event.
Wilder versus Parker and Joshua versus Wallen. Headline a history-making boxing card.
This is expected to be fight of the year.
Legends will be forged. The furnace awaits. Reckoning is in the ring. Live on DAZN pay-per-view. Buy now at DAZN.com. Don't miss.
Looking for a fun way to win 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/play100 and use code play100. That's code play100 at prizepicks.com/play100 for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Hello and welcome to the Paddock and the Pavilion with Stephen Wallace. In each show, Stephen will interview someone connected to the world of horse racing or cricket.
Welcome back to part 2 of Staying On Well with Ron Hutchinson. After talking to Ron about many of his riding successes, we moved on to reflect on the great jockeys and horses he rode against and the differences of riding in Britain. Ron goes on to reveal the best horse he rode. Find out the secret to how he keeps fit and active as he approaches the midway point of his 10th decade. You've talked about Scobie Breesley and Lester Piggott. Who do you regard as the greatest jockey that you rode against during your 37-year career?
Well, Steve, look, I rode in some. I've been watching over the years some wonderful jockeys in my time. Before I left Australia, here in Melbourne, Bill Williamson, of course, as you know, he did well when he went to England as well. He won 2 Arc de Triomphes, and he was an outstanding jockey. Of course, as a young boy growing up in my early apprentice days, Scobie Breesley was always my idol, and as we turned out there later in life to be great friends. And then, of course, when I went to England, or before going to England, there was jockeys like Neville Selwood, Darby Munro, Billy Cook, that were all outstanding jockeys here in Australia. And then when I went to England, of course, meeting Lester and of course Joe Mercer, Jimmy Lindley, all great jockeys. It's pretty hard to sort of pick out which is the best, but of course Lester's got the record on them on the board as such as 8 or 9 derbies he's won, and he's won Darks, he's won everywhere, everything, wherever he went, he was a great success. So looking back over the years to say pinpoint the best jockey in the world, I suppose Lester's had the numbers on the board, but Scobie Breesley, Yves St. Martin, great jockeys. Cash Usherson from Steve Cawthon from America. You know, when you look back, they were great. They're great wonderful jockeys, and I'm so honoured to think that I met all these these jockeys that have come along and done so well. Been great. It's been great.
And what were the main differences riding in Australia to riding in the UK?
Oh, Steve, the variety of tracks in England, and you've got to be, that's for mine, it's a home of racing over in England, I must say. We've got nice tracks here in Melbourne, like, Flemington's a lovely track to ride on, and great. They're all, wonderful tracks. But when you go to England and you ride those undulating tracks like, Goodwood, for instance, is a wonderful track, up and hill and down Dale, and Brighton, of course, and those, and everything is different over in England. They're wide open tracks, and of course, I can remember riding in Ali Pally around just in London. That was what a unique sort of track that was, to ride on. It was and Newbury, when I think of Newbury, what a lovely track that was. Doncaster, what a lovely. York is another one. They're wonderful race courses to ride on, long straights. Every horse gets a fair chance, whether you came from behind or led in a race. Yeah, it was just everything was wonderful, from my point of view. I enjoyed it so much over there. And riding on those tracks, even up in Scotland, and riding a lovely track like Ayr, beautiful race courses, and every horse that gets a good chance or a fair chance,
Because in your day, you must have gone from barrier starts to the stalls as well in England.
Of course it was open. When I looked at this movie I was watching this afternoon, Rainbow Jacket, that was the start of the open start, and the 5-star Australian barriers. They was pretty hectic in those compared to what they're like today. Once you get locked in the stalls in the races now, you've got maybe not much worry until the gates open. But over there, you have to try and get into, to avoid getting kicked or something like that, because it was pretty hectic at the start in those days, trying to get off, and if you won the start, well, that is a big bonus,
And as for horses, what was the best horse you rode and why?
Well, as I say, I rode some good rides. As I say, a horse like before I mentioned, Flora Brumner, a great good sprinter. Manzathos, he was a pretty good horse, but I suppose when it come to looking back, the horse that sort of stuck in my mind as a good horse. I only rode him 4 times. There's a horse called Balmerino. He was a New Zealand horse, and he came to England. And John Dunlop trained him, and he won his first start in England. Over 1.25 miles at Goodwood, and then he, I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks later, he went to France and ran second to Alleged in the Arc de Triomphe, and then about 2 weeks later, he went to Milan, and I won the race, but unfortunately, when I hit him with a whip, he ducked and he interfered with the horse that ran second, and anyway, they took the race off me. But anyway, he went. My last ride was in the Washington International, and I think he ran third, if I remember rightly. And that was I consider him to be a top class horse, because he did so well, and he was getting on in years too. He was a pretty good 2-year-old and 3-year-old here in Victoria and or in Australia and New Zealand. And anyway, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame here in Australia. So I would consider that he would be the best horse that I rode.
Another horse I was going to ask you about, because a friend of mine, Chris Pitt, asked me that you rode a horse called Belper that had one eye.
Oh, yes, owned by Lady Sarah, yes, Belper, that's right. He was a pretty good horse. He was there one with one eye. And I remember the story about that when he was a very good horse, and Lord Belper, unfortunately, had lost his eye, and they were talking about, they could use his name, Belper, as long as they didn't geld him. So they could use his name as long as they didn't geld him. That was it. So anyway, he ran won some wonderful races too over there. I was very, very lucky here with a horse with one eye. Wonderful.
Because he was only winning on left-handed tracks.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yes. But it didn't seem to worry him very much. So he was quite quite easy to ride. If I remember rightly, we had no problem with him, and as I say, he was quite a good horse, very good horse. Yeah.
And what about horses you rode against? Because you rode in Nijinsky's Derby and Sarajevo's Derby. Were they the best horses you rode against?
Yeah, and Mill Reef. Remember Mill Reef, Jeff Lewis? Yes, yeah. I didn't. Jeff and I, when in my days living in Epsom, Jeff was riding Mill Reef, of course, where only lived a couple of 50 yards away from one another. And on that particular, I remember Jeff saying, coming down there, and he said on the Saturday morning, on the Derby morning, I don't care. He says whether I'll win the Derby. He said I don't care whether I come from last or first or wherever I am. He said they won't beat me today, and it was true. Yeah, and if I remember rightly, too, at that particular time he'd had a fall, and he'd hurt his arm or hurt his hand, and he was he was in a bit of pain with his hand. But anyway, it didn't make any difference. He still rode it under those circumstances and won the Derby. So he was a good horse, Mill Reef, very good horse. And that Brigadier Gerard, they had some great tussles together here. They were both good horses. But Nijinsky, I think that he won because 3 Classics was a great performance too. Yeah, Royal Palace was another good horse too that I saw over there. He was a good horse. Royal Palace at George Moore, I think, won the Derby on him. The Noel Merlers. Very good horses.
Why?
If you have T-Mobile 5G home internet, you might be hearing this a lot.
Why?
Every time your internet slows down during the busiest hours.
Why?
Because your network gives priority to cell phone users.
Why?
Good question. Why not switch to Cox Internet with 2 times faster download speeds than T-Mobile 5G home internet during peak hours?
Okay.
Stop the whys and visit cox.com/5G home for details. T-Mobile prioritizes certain T-Mobile phone users over home internet users during times of congestion.
And when you finally retired, was it always your intention to go back to live in Australia?
Yes. It was always in my intention to come back, because although I enjoyed very much England and everything, but during the winter time, Steve, I couldn't stand the cold. I was the cold. I'm a warm weather person, and the cold weather used to get into me, and even still today, this day and age now, I still can't stand the cold, and when the sun's shining, I'm shining as well. So that's why I came back to Australia. I want to come back to Australia. Also, I was interested in a stud farm out here in South Australia, Lindsay Park. And my good friend Colin Hayes and I joined up, and we bought this particular place, Lindsay Park, which is still going now. But of course, I've got nothing to do with it anymore. But it was quite a successful stud, and we had some very good stallions, and so it was quite successful. And but unfortunately, I've got out of all those things now. I just live a life of leisure.
Well, you certainly should do at the age of 94, but you still get to follow the racing and go racing as well.
Oh, very much so, yes. Oh, yes. I live, at the moment, I'm living in Cranbourne, a place called Cranbourne South, but I was living on the racecourse at Mornington. So my daughter, her husband, he was chairman of the Mornington Racing Club, and so they made me the ambassador to the Mornington Racing Club, which I'm quite chuffed about, because it's a nice little honour, and so I still go racing quite a lot. The Flemington and everybody called for the Melbourne Racing Club, and Flemington made me life members, so I'm quite happy about that too.
And Ron, as a 94-year-old, how do you keep fit?
Well, Steve, I turned 80, and I had a very good old friend of mine, George Hadlin, and he was a great swimmer. He loved going and swimming, so he encouraged me to go with him a few times, and I took up swimming when I turned 80, which was like 14 years ago, and I swim nearly every day, 4 or 5 times a week, and I swim a kilometre every. That's my. It takes me about just under an hour to swim a kilometre, and then I come out of the sauna. I get into a sauna and lay in a spa, and I pamper myself for about 2 hours, 4 or 5 times a day, a week. So that's how I keep myself sort of free and easy. Yeah.
So you still get to get in that sauna. You still get to get in that sauna now.
Yes, I do. I spend a half an hour first time before to warm myself up, and then after it's all finished, I spend another half hour in the sauna. So yes, I enjoy it. I meet a few people in the sauna that I start chatting with, and I enjoy myself for the time. It's good, very good. Keeps me alert, I think. That's in my opinion. And as I say, I very seldom get aches and pains. I might suffer times with a little bit of gout occasionally, but outside of that, I'm keeping pretty good myself.
And 2 of your sons are involved in racing, and Peter was a very good jockey himself.
Yeah, Pete. Yes, he did very well out here as a jockey, and he won the Caulfield Cup. He was very, very successful. And of course, my elder son Raymond, who was a veterinary surgeon, he went to school at the Royal Veterinary College in London. At that particular time, he was quite he was a champion amateur rider in those days, going back in those days. And he was very successful, and he's out here now. He's semi-retired, but he's still involved in the horse racing industry, and does the veterinary around this area where we are now. And he also does the trotting veterinary for the trots during each time each week. So he's quite busy in that respect. And Pete's retired, of course. He's got a couple of little children, and he's retired. He just fills in time doing things. So he seems to be enjoying himself too.
Well, looking back, Ron, from a young boy writing at school that you wanted to be a jockey, you've certainly lived the life you wanted to live.
Oh yes, Steve. Yes, I have no regrets of anything that I've done in my life. I did pretty well as an apprentice jockey, and then became a successful jockey in later life. I married a lovely lady, my wife Norma, she's passed on now, of course. But I've had a wonderful life. I've got 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and they look after me tremendously, and they're still looking after me. So I've had a very, very happy and successful life, and I have no regrets whatsoever. Made some wonderful friends in Ireland and England, Germany, and still friends today. A lot of them have gone to God, of course, which is unfortunate, but on a whole, I've had a wonderful life, and my time in England was absolutely outstanding, and I enjoyed every day of my life in England, so I've got no regrets.
Thank you very much for joining me on the show. You've got your green sweater, which obviously for Ireland, on this morning, and you look very smart. I hope that pacemaker keeps going for many years.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. But as I say, when you think of when I look around, some of my old friends, they've got dementia, or they get lost, or they've got to be locked in their rooms and all that sort of thing. Fortunately, I'm still free as a bird and free and easy, and I think I've still got my marbles about me. I know what day it is, and I know the sunshine, so I'm good. Look, I'm quite happy at the moment. I'm enjoying my life, and I hope that I can get to 100. That'd be lovely.
Well, let's hope so. Thank you very much, Ron.
Yeah, good on you, Steve. Yeah, nice talking to you. And I hope I bring back some very happy memories to some of the people that I've met in England.
Thank you for listening to The Paddock and the Pavilion. You can download the show on Apple Podcasts,
Amazon Music,
SoundCloud, Stitcher and Spotify.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at The Pad and Pav. Don't forget, if you like the show, please do leave us a rating and review.
Sports Social Podcast Network. Right now at Safeway, earn 4 times rewards points when you shop for participating items with Safeway for you. Shop for items like Frigo crumbled blue cheese, Kellogg's Club crackers, Coca-Cola, all liquid detergent, or Utz chips, and earn 4 times rewards points with Safeway for you. Offer expires January 4th. Plus, get select holiday essentials like gift wraps, bags, holiday decor, lights, and more. Buy one, get one 50% off. Restrictions apply. Promotions may vary. Visit Safeway.com or head in store for full offer details.